I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Tello Community Television. With me today is the Minister of the new Department of Energy. Welcome, Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau.
Thanks for having me again, Jake.
So perhaps you can start off by explaining how this new department was once under the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, but now has its own portfolio, and maybe explain why that change was made.
Yeah, look, certainly in the Strait area for sure. Energy has been a topic of conversation for a number of years, and energy was an entity on its own prior to our government. And so when we came in, they combined natural resources and renewables, but it was felt that this entity, energy on its own, certainly has gotten quite large and quite significant, and is an important component of moving forward as a government. And so they thought it was important to have one single entity for energy and another one for natural resources, which in itself is quite large. Whether when you think of our parks and natural resources, but land development as well, and so mines will be under that as well. So lots of natural resources and certainly lots with energy as well.
Now, you mentioned the green energy projects that are proposed and planned for this region. And we talked about it previously after your election or re-election, I should say. And I'm assuming that these projects are going to be a good piece of the portfolio that you're now in.
Yeah, so the energy will look at both green energy, which is a priority for this government, and that includes green hydrogen and offshore wind, as well as tidal, as well as battery storage and some other initiatives as well. And certainly Nova Scotia wants to be leaders in those things. And it's also about dealing with programs like Efficiency Nova Scotia and working with Nova Scotia Power as well. And so it's a significant and large portfolio. And the Strait area, as I mentioned, is poised to be and has the potential to be a green energy leader, not only in Nova Scotia, but across the world. And so really looking forward to that challenge and all that comes with it.
And you did mention the proposed wind projects, and I guess we're talking about offshore wind, and we're talking about it as well on land wind projects that are being proposed, and which are also now under your portfolio. Now, there has been some opposition to some of these projects, and I assume that's going to be part of navigating this new cabinet position too, as well.
Yeah, look, it's whenever there's kind of new initiatives or new projects, certainly there's questions and ideas of what needs to be done and what are the risks involved. And so certainly our department will play a role in that. Typically with large projects, environment plays a role in that as well, environment and climate change. And so they provide EAs and that sort of thing. But we, as a government, have worked hard on providing and putting legislation out there to provide an opportunity for developers and others to look at opportunities that Nova Scotia has. Right, we have some of the best wind speeds in the world, and harnessing that's a lot like harnessing oil or natural gas for some other areas. So we have to make sure we're doing it right and appropriately and engaging with all stakeholders. And that includes people who may have questions about what it is that we want to do.
Now, you mentioned alternative forms of energy and things of that nature. I assume that solar power is also part of your this position too?
That's right. So solar could be is a great example of another component that could be included in our matrix, or if you will, right, of all the different. I think what I'm learning fairly quickly here is diversifying our energy sources is key to having a stable, reliable energy grid, and also having long-term conditions to keep it consistent for taxpayers and ratepayers.
And you did mention Nova Scotia Power, and I assume one of the challenges is going to be to keep energy costs down for the average consumer, as well as for the bigger commercial and even industrial users of power in Nova Scotia. And you're not going to want to see the costs for that get too much.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's important to note that with everything that we look at, the ratepayers in Nova Scotia and the taxpayers in Nova Scotia are always front of mind. And what that means is we're always looking for ways to make sure that when we're looking at projects that we do it with ratepayers in mind. So reducing the risk of cost, of cost escalation. So those are big challenges. They have been for many years, and they are in many jurisdictions across the world. So we need to look for long-term, sustainable, clean energy sources, and we're going to continue to do that.
So when you were told that you were going to be the new minister of energy, what was your reaction once you found out?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I'm very excited to be part of the cabinet. It's an honor, certainly, to serve in cabinet, and I had an opportunity to do that previously. And this portfolio is a little bit different than community services, but certainly impacts Nova Scotians and looks at economic development opportunities for the province. And so, very excited. The Premier has made it very known that he believes that the energy sector and the green energy sector is something that we can be world leaders in. And so, given this portfolio and the opportunity for that, I'm really excited to be part of that.
Now, how do you feel this portfolio is going to allow you to deliver for the people of Richmond County? There's always an expectation when someone goes into council or into cabinet that they're going to be able to bring home the bacon, I guess, for lack of a better term, but be able to do something for the people that they serve. Naturally, of course, you have the Nova Scotia Power generating station in Point Tupper. We have the two energy projects earmarked for Point Tupper, so it's kind of a natural fit, I guess. But how do you see your role in cabinet and your role as MLA?
Look, I mean, as an MLA in government, you have an opportunity to work on behalf of your constituents and have a say at the table, right, at the caucus table. And I think as an MLA, I've done that, and certainly we've had a considerable number of announcements, and there's different developments happening. But in this role in particular, it's no secret to most people in Nova Scotia that the Strait of Canso is where that green energy hub is being looked at. And so, I think of the Strait Area Task Force and the role that the municipalities and businesses have come together to look at opportunities, and they're working together to make sure that we're looking at all avenues and looking across the globe to make sure that we're doing it right. I've built those connections almost a little bit as an MLA because this was in my back area. So a lot of the developers have some comfort in knowing that I'm there because I've already had conversations with them over the last 3.5 years, and I was probably one of the MLAs that was most interested in this file because of that. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing to build those relationships. And if we are, and I believe we will be successful in developing that green energy sector, the Strait of Canso and Richmond, of course, should see significant benefit from that.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question is, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but these green energy projects alone do offer a great promise for this riding. And if they do proceed, we're not just looking at the employment at those facilities themselves, but the potential that it has to attract other industry and other employers into this region and could really be a game changer.
Aren't I so lucky to be able to be part of that right, and that movement ahead. And so look, I've had conversations with my council colleagues since I've been sworn in, and I've had conversations with a few stakeholders from the area who've reached out, and certainly I'm very well aware of the potential and the opportunity, and certainly engaging with stakeholders who have other things as well. We want this to coexist with our other industries that are taking place. And so, look, we've got a long way to go, but we have a vision, I think, and there's lots to this file, lots to learn, and I'm very eager to get up to speed.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. There are existing industries, marine industries, fishing, and others like that too. And certainly you're not going to want to step on anyone's toes in those traditional industries, which do offer a lot of value to the area while you're developing these new industries. So I assume there's going to be not so much a juggling act, but that there's going to have to be some consideration made for those that are already here and those that are coming. I guess it's a balancing, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, right. It's about coexisting and finding the right balance. And certainly, those things have been done through regional assessment exercises, both with oil and gas previously, but also when you look at kind of the offshore wind side of things right now. And I would say we're very acutely aware of those things, and in that engagement and consultation, both with whether you consider fishers or the Mi'kmaq community and Indigenous community, and there are other stakeholders as well. So I would say that is an important part of making sure we get this right as we move forward. But still lots for me to learn and do, and looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Yes, and that learning process, I suppose, considering this portfolio and considering what you have to do, there is going to have to be some learning process, which I assume you're engaged in right now. And but before long, I guess you're going to be going to your meetings and conferences and things of that nature. And so there's probably some time to learn, but not a huge amount of time to learn everything you need to know, I guess.
I today was my first day. Like, I'm in Halifax now at the department, and got to meet a lot of our staff. Being on Treasury Board previously, I've gotten to interact with staff on a considerable number of times, whether it's with legislation or budget talks or those sorts of things. So I've had a bit of a relationship with a number of staff already, and well as in whenever there's been meetings or engagements with the community or with the task force, I've gotten to know a lot of the staff there as well. So I do feel that I have a little bit of a leg up compared to someone who would be coming in here fairly cold. But by looking at the depth of the binders that they're handing me and the briefings that I've had, I still have lots to learn, and that's the best part of it is getting into it now, asking lots of questions, engaging with stakeholders, meeting with people, and those will be building those relationships. That will be important over the next number of weeks and months as we move our plan forward.
Now, this portfolio, no doubt, is going to require some travel on your part, a lot of meetings, a lot of conferences, and it probably will provide some challenges, I guess, keeping in touch and keeping a good profile in your writing. So, how do you plan on doing that? I assume that's going to require a lot of organization and a lot of preparation and planning.
The most important thing as an MLA, I think, is keeping in contact with your constituency and making sure you're out and engaged. And I'm fortunate to have a really good staff at my office as well. So the staff that I have are very active and make sure that they're there to support people. But it is always about organizing and making sure that you make time for those things. And that is an important part and will always be an important part of my job, and that I will continue to make sure that is a priority. So I'm already thinking about how that will work, but yeah, there's always competing issues, right, and things on the go. But one of my strengths is being able to manage that. So I will take that into consideration as I move forward.
Now, I know you have, no power over what happens at the federal level, but we're at a point right now where we have a sitting government, and it looks like this government might be replaced by another party at some point in time, maybe in the fall and that. So I assume, do you guys not only have to have an open line of communication with the existing government, which seems to be very supportive of this, but I assume you guys are going to also have to either begin work or reach out, if you haven't already, to the opposition and kind of bring them up to speed on what's going on too. How do you do that?
Yeah, no, I think that's something that always happens, right? I mean, there's in every level of government, I would say, like in provincial and federal governments, there's always, certainly you have ministers and you have departments that you reach out to, and Minister Wilkinson has reached out to me already as the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources federally, but they have critics in both the New Democratic Party and the Conservative parties, and so we'll make those connections and make sure that we have those conversations. And our government has is open to working with everybody, and we've had a great relationship at our level at this department. Certainly with the department federally, we've been they've gone hand in hand in developing what needs to be done to enable this offshore and this green hydrogen sector. And so I would say, that is always an important part of it. I mentioned building relationships earlier on in this interview, and that is a key part of this, is making sure you have those connections with your federal colleagues, but also your municipal colleagues, right? I mean, our municipalities are all impacted by this as well. So they're very engaged. I will say, not just in Richmond County, but Guysborough County, Port Hawkesbury. And so, I'll continue to work on making sure we're all informed and moving in the same direction as best we can.
And I assume too, one of the challenges in this portfolio is going to be, kind of straddling the line between supporting industry, but also not being seen as being too supportive of industry or too pro green energy, let's say, where you want, I guess, Nova Scotians to make up their own minds about how they feel about it rather than being seen as telling people how they should feel.
I think that goes with any portfolio. What I would say is it's about making sure people have the information they need to understand it, right? So this is complex stuff, right? This isn't easy stuff to necessarily understand, and how it's going to impact the average consumer of energy. And there's lots of talk of electrification, and whether it's in automobiles or solar panels on your house or green hydrogen, or these are things that will take some time. And I've had conversations with staff already about making sure we are engaged with Nova Scotians to understand what our vision is and why our vision is there. And I think that is something that will be a key component to ensuring that everybody at least understands why we're making the decisions that we're making.
And I assume too, since you guys received such a resounding mandate from the public in the provincial election, it makes it a lot easier, I guess, knowing that the Nova Scotians do support your government and your party, and that that you have that public level of public support to pursue the priorities that you guys have identified too.
Yeah, and I think Nova Scotians resonated very well with the message that we were presenting. Resonated with Nova Scotians, and we've been very open about our desire to be a green energy powerhouse, I would say, across the globe. And so, there are going to be challenges. This is not, I'm not naive in that sense, but what an opportunity we have as a province and as a region, to do something different, to do something that could be long lasting. And look, I'm just really happy and excited to be part of that. And I'm committed certainly to the residents of Richmond County to do what I can to create that environment where we're all successful. And success will mean different things to everybody, right? For some, it's lower power rates, and for others, it's those job opportunities. And regardless of what that is for people, we want to make sure that we're looking at all of that when we're moving forward.
Well, I appreciate you giving time out of what is, I'm sure, a busy schedule now with the new department, and really appreciate you making time to speak with me and our viewers.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jake, and it's always a pleasure.